Captain Maya Rodriguez stood on the bridge of her ship Starbound Pioneer and watched the stars through the main window. The ship moved slowly through space toward a system that was supposed to be dead. Her crew worked quietly at their stations, checking readings and monitoring systems. The signal had come 3 days ago while they were returning from a mapping mission in the Outer Rim. Sophie Carter, her tactical officer, had been the first to notice it. A weak transmission coming from the Kepler system where no life should exist. The scientists back on Earth had declared that system lifeless after the great solar flares destroyed everything. Maya looked at the data on her screen again. The signal was strange. It contained sounds that reminded her of old Earth languages from fantasy books. The computer could not translate most of it, but some words seemed familiar, like they came from stories about elves and magic. Grace Liu, her chief engineer, called from her station. "Captain, the energy readings are getting stronger as we get closer. This is not normal technology. I have never seen patterns like this before." Maya walked over to Grace Station and looked at the displays. The energy was unlike anything in human databases. It pulsed, in waves that seemed almost alive. The patterns were too complex for any known power source. Sophie turned from her position. "We are receiving another transmission." "Captain, this one is clearer. Put it on speakers," Maya said. The bridge filled with a voice, speaking in that strange language, but somehow Maya could understand parts of it. The voice was female and sounded tired, like someone who had been waiting for a very long time. "To the children of Earth, who remember the old ways, we call to you from the last sanctuary. Come quickly before the shadows find us again. The guardian waits for the one who carries the ancient blood." Maya felt a chill run down her back. She could understand the words, even though her crew looked confused. The language sounded like music mixed with starlight. Captain Lisa Park said from communications, "I am detecting a large structure ahead. It appears to be a space station, but the design is unlike anything in our files." On the main screen, a massive structure came into view. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The station looked like it had been grown rather than built. Curved walls of what appeared to be crystal mixed with metal created flowing designs that seemed to pulse with inner light. The whole structure was easily 10 times larger than the biggest human station. Maya stared at the station, feeling something deep inside her respond to its presence. It was like seeing something from a half-remembered dream. "We need to get closer," she said. Captain Sophie said carefully, "Earth Command ordered us to avoid unknown alien structures. This could be dangerous." Maya knew Sophie was right, but something inside her refused to turn away. The feeling grew stronger as they approached the station, like a voice calling her home. "I know what Command said, but this signal came to us for a reason. Look at those energy readings, Grace. This technology could change everything for humanity. We have to investigate." The crew exchanged glances, but began preparing for approach. Maya had always been a careful captain, but there was something different about her now. She seemed drawn to the station in a way that worried her officers. As they moved closer, more details became visible. The station had docking ports that looked designed for ships but not human ships. The proportions were wrong, and there were symbols carved into the hull that seemed to shift and change when viewed directly. Captain Grace called, "There is a docking bay opening. It appears to be inviting us in." Maya nodded. "Begin docking procedures." The Starbound Pioneer moved into the station through an opening that sealed behind them with a soft glow. The docking bay was filled with the same strange light that pulsed through. The wall's atmosphere readings showed the air was breathable, but contained elements not found in human space. A figure waited for them on the docking platform. As Maya and her team left their ship, they saw her clearly. She was tall and graceful, with pointed ears and violet eyes that held the weight of centuries. Her clothing looked like it was made from starlight itself, and she carried weapons that hummed with energy. Behind her stood the most magnificent creature Maya had ever seen. A dragon, with scales that seemed to contain actual stars. Its eyes were ancient and wise, and when it looked at Maya, she felt like it could see into her soul. The woman stepped forward and spoke in that musical language. But Maya understood every word. Lyra Nightwhisper, guardian of the last gate and protector of those who sleep in the deep chambers. She gestured to the dragon. This is Shadowfire, my bonded companion and keeper of memories. Lyra looked directly at Maya and her expression changed to one of wonder mixed with hope. You came at last. I have waited 300 years for a human who could hear the old speech and understand our need. You carry something inside you that most of your kind have forgotten. Maya felt her crew tense behind her, but she stepped closer to Lyra. What do you mean? What am I supposed to understand? Lyra smiled sadly. Your people once walked between the stars as easily as they walk on Earth. You built cities that floated in the clouds and bonded with dragons to travel the void. But something happened long ago that cut Earth from the great network and made humans forget their true nature. She gestured around the station. This is all that remains of the Celestial Alliance, once thousands of worlds worked together to protect life and beauty throughout the galaxy. Now only this sanctuary survives, and even it grows weaker. Each year. Shadowfire the dragon spoke directly into Maya's mind with a voice like distant thunder. The enemy comes again. Guardian, the shadows that consume worlds have found new strength. They seek the last gate. And if they claim it all, dimensions will fall to their hunger. Maya felt overwhelmed by the information, but also strangely calm, as if this moment had always been meant to happen. What do you need from us? Lyra pointed toward the center of the station. Deep in the core lies technology that could restore Earth connection to the Alliance, but it requires someone with the ancient bloodline to activate it. Someone who carries both human determination and the old magic. She looked at Maya with growing excitement. The signs are all there in your presence. You understand our speech when no other human has for centuries. Your ship found us when our signal should have been impossible to detect. And Shadowfire recognizes something in your spirit. Maya turned to her crew, who were watching with a mixture of fear and fascination. Sophie stepped forward. Captain, we should contact Earth Command before making any decision. Even as Sophie spoke, Maya felt the truth settling into her bones. This was why they had been called here. This was why she had always felt like something was missing from her life. I need to see this technology, she said to Lyra. Show me what needs to be done. Lyra nodded and began walking toward the station interior. Come then. Time grows short, and there are things you must understand before the real choice comes. As they walked deeper into the station, Maya noticed thousands of small windows in the walls. Through them, she could see chambers filled with sleeping figures from dozens of different worlds, all refugees waiting for the day when it would be safe to wake. The weight of responsibility settled on Maya's shoulders, but instead of crushing her, it made her stand straighter. Whatever was coming, she would face it. These people had waited long enough for hope to return. Shadowfire led them through corridors that seemed to breathe with living light. The dragon moved with grace despite his massive size, and Maya found herself walking beside him while Lyra guided them deeper into the station. You wish to understand. What happened to your world? The dragon said into Maya. Mind. His voice was warm but carried the weight of countless years. I can show you. But the memories are not gentle ones. Maya nodded. I need to know. Shadowfire stopped and lowered his great head until it was level with Maya. Touch my forehead and I will share what I have seen. But know that dragon memories are more real than human dreams. You will experience these events as if you lived them. Maya reached out and placed her hand on the warm scales between Shadowfire eyes. The world around her disappeared. She stood on a beautiful world where crystal cities reached toward purple skies. Humans with pointed ears worked alongside creatures from dozens of worlds, building wonders that defied imagination. Dragons soared through aurora-filled skies carrying riders between floating islands, but darkness came from the space between stars. Ships that seemed to bend light around them arrived without warning. The creatures that emerged from these vessels consumed everything they touched, turning vibrant worlds into lifeless husks. They were called the Void Harbingers, and they moved from system to system. Like a plague, Maya watched in horror as entire civilizations fell. The Harbingers, did not just destroy, they corrupted. Worlds they touched became breeding grounds for twisted creatures that served their dark purpose. She saw Earth as it had been long ago, a world of magic and wonder where humans lived in harmony with dragons and other magical beings. But as the Harbingers drew closer, the leaders of Earth made a terrible choice. They severed all connections to the galactic network, cutting their world off from the Alliance to hide it from the enemy. The process was traumatic. Maya felt the pain of billions as their magical abilities faded and their memories of the greater universe disappeared. Humans were left alone on their world, with only fragments of the old knowledge surviving in myths and stories. The vision ended, and Maya found herself back in the station corridor, tears streaming down her face. Shadowfire watched her with ancient eyes full of compassion. "Now you understand why your people forgot the stars?" He said. "They chose isolation over extinction." Lyra placed a gentle hand on Maya's shoulder. The plan worked. Earth remained hidden while the Harbingers consumed much of the galaxy, but the cost was terrible. Your people lost their magic, their connections to other worlds, and their ability to travel between dimensions. They continued walking through the station until they reached a massive chamber filled with glowing consoles. Sophie, Grace, and Lisa stared in amazement at technology that seemed centuries ahead of anything humans had built. Grace approached one of the consoles and her scanner began going wild. "Captain, these energy readings are impossible. This single console contains more processing power than our entire ship." Lyra nodded. "The technology here could revolutionize human space travel. Your people could rejoin the galactic community and help us fight the Harbingers. But accessing the core systems requires genetic markers that only someone with the ancient bloodline possesses." Maya walked to the central console, feeling drawn to it. When she placed her hand on its surface, the entire chamber lit up with new energy. Symbols appeared in the air around them, showing star maps and dimensional pathways. Sophie stepped closer to Maya. "Captain, your DNA scanner is showing impossible readings. You have genetic markers that should not exist in the human population." Maya looked at the readings and felt another piece of the puzzle fall into place. "According to this, I am part human and part something else." Lyra smiled. "You carry the bloodline of the bridge builders, those who could connect worlds and dimensions. Your ancestors were among the most powerful of the old Alliance." Shadowfire moved closer to the console and his eyes began to glow. Maya felt his consciousness touching hers again, but this time the connection was different, deeper. "There is something else you must know," he said. "I am not just any dragon. I am the last of the cosmic dragons, beings who served as living bridges between dimensions. For 3 centuries, I have waited here because I recognize something in the energy patterns of your world." Maya felt a strange warmth spreading through her body. "What did you recognize?" "Your soul carries fragments of someone I knew long ago, my bonded partner who died, sealing the original portal between Earth and the Harbinger dimension. She was human and elf mixed like you, and she sacrificed herself to save countless worlds." The implications hit Maya like a physical blow. "You think I am her reincarnation?" Shadowfire nodded. "The connection I feel is unmistakable. You have her determination, her compassion, and her power. But you also have something she lacked, the pure human stubbornness that refuses to give up." Grace called from across the chamber. "Captain, I am detecting something concerning. There are sections of this station that show signs of energy corruption. The patterns match descriptions of Harbinger influence." Lyra's face went pale. "We have been fighting not just external enemies but the whispers in our own minds. Prolonged exposure to Harbinger energy slowly drives beings insane. I have felt their voices growing stronger in recent years." Maya felt a chill as she realized the implications. "Are you saying some of the sleeping refugees might be corrupted?" "We do not know," Lyra admitted. "But if the corruption has spread to the refugee chambers, we may have walked into a trap. The Harbingers are patient. They could have waited centuries for someone with your abilities to arrive." Sophie checked her weapon readings. "Captain, we should consider returning to the ship until we can assess the threat level." But Maya felt something else through her connection with Shadowfire. The dragon was showing her images of the station defenses and the sleeping refugees. Most were still pure, still waiting for salvation. But there were dark spots in the network, places where something had gone wrong. Lisa called from her communication station. "I am detecting movement in the lower levels of the station. Something is activating systems down there." Alarms began sounding throughout the chamber, and Lyra drew her weapons. "The corruption is spreading faster now that you have activated the core systems. We need to reach the refugee chambers before whatever is down there fully awakens." Maya felt the weight of decision pressing down on her. Thousands of sleeping beings depended on her choice. She could try to activate the portal system and call for help, but that would expose Earth to possible Harbinger attack. Or she could attempt to purify the corruption using the ancient rituals Lyra had mentioned. Shadowfire spoke into her mind again. "There is a third option, one that your predecessor used 300 years ago. You could merge temporarily with my cosmic essence and use our combined power to cleanse the station. But the process is dangerous and you might not return unchanged." Maya looked around at her crew, at Lyra, at the sleeping refugees visible through the chamber windows. All these lives hung in the balance, and she was the only one who could tip the scales. The station shuddered as something powerful moved in the depths below. Time was running out, and Maya had to choose between safety and sacrifice, between hiding and fighting. She had never felt more human than in that moment when the weight of an entire galaxy rested on her shoulders, but she also felt something else awakening inside her, something that had been sleeping for lifetimes. "Make your choice, Guardian," Shadowfire said gently. "But know that whatever you decide, I will stand with you." As I stood with her, Maya closed her eyes and felt the ancient power stirring in her blood. The bridge builder was awakening, and the galaxy would never be the same. Maya made her choice without hesitation. "I will do the merging ritual. We cannot let the corruption spread to the sleeping refugees." Shadowfire eyes blazed with approval, and ancient power began to flow between them. Maya felt her consciousness expanding as the dragon essence merged with her human spirit. The station around her became more than metal and crystal. She could see the energy flows, the life forces of thousands of sleeping beings, and the dark tendrils of corruption creeping through the lower levels. But their connection was interrupted by a sound that made everyone freeze. A low humming filled the station, like the song of dying stars. Through the windows they could see ships approaching, vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflected. "Harbinger scouts," Lyra whispered, drawing her weapons. "They have found us." The attacking ships moved like liquid shadow flowing around the station, defenses with impossible grace. Maya watched in horror as they began attaching themselves to the hull. Their touch spread darkness across the crystal walls like an infection. Sophie activated her combat scanner. "Captain, I count 12 enemy vessels, but the readings are wrong. They appear to be partially existing in our dimension." Grace called. "From the engineering station, the station shields are failing. Whatever those ships are doing, they are draining power from our systems." Maya felt the corruption in the lower levels respond to the Harbinger presence, growing stronger and more active. Through her connection with Shadowfire, she could sense something terrible awakening in the refugee chambers. "We need to get to the lower levels now," she said. But even as she spoke, the lights throughout the chamber began to flicker. Lyra led them through corridors that now pulsed with sickly energy. The beautiful flowing designs on the walls had taken on a twisted appearance, and Maya could hear whispers in languages that hurt to understand. The Harbingers were not just attacking the station. They were trying to corrupt everyone inside. They reached the refugee chambers, and Maya's heart sank. Many of the sleeping pods now glowed with the same dark energy as the Harbinger ships. Through the transparent walls, she could see the peaceful faces of the sleepers beginning to change their features, twisting into something alien and hungry. Grace's scanner went wild. "Captain, the corruption is not random. It is following specific patterns, targeting individuals with strong psychic abilities." Shadowfire roared in rage and pain. The dragon massive form writhed as he fought against the whispers filling his mind. Maya realized that his connection to her was making him more vulnerable to the Harbinger influence. Lyra's confession came in a broken voice. "I have been fighting their whispers for decades. The corruption does not just change your body. It rewrites your thoughts, your memories until you forget who you were. I can feel it. Winning. Maya felt the horrible truth settling over them. The station had not just been discovered by the Harbingers, it had been a trap all along. The enemy had been patient, waiting for someone with bridge builder abilities to activate the core systems so they could corrupt the entire network. Lisa's voice came through. Their communication devices. Captain, the Harbinger ships are doing something to our vessel. They are not destroying it, they are changing it. On her scanner, Maya could see the starbound Pioneer transforming its hull, flowing into new configurations. That matched Harbinger design. The corruption was not just affecting the station, it was claiming everything. Human technology included. Sophie raised her weapon as shadows began moving in the corridors around them. The corrupted refugees were waking up, and they were no longer the innocent beings who had gone to sleep centuries ago. Maya felt despair creeping into her heart. But then Shadowfire's voice cut through the darkness with desperate hope. There is still a way. Guardian. The corruption feeds on despair and fear, but it cannot touch pure creative force. If we complete the merging ritual now while your human determination is still strong, we might be able to reverse the process. But the cost, Lyra warned. The ritual was designed to be performed in safety with proper preparations. Attempting it while under attack could destroy you both. Maya looked around at the chaos surrounding them. Corrupted refugees pressed against their pod walls, trying to break free. Harbinger energy flowed through. The station systems, like poison, and her own crew was beginning to show signs of influence. Lisa's eyes had taken on a strange glow, and Grace was muttering in languages she should not know. The whispers in Maya's mind grew stronger, offering her power and knowledge if she would just surrender to the corruption. She could rule worlds, command fleets of shadow ships, and never feel pain or fear again. All she had to do was stop fighting. But Maya thought of Earth, of her crew, of the thousands of innocent refugees who deserved better than corruption and slavery. She thought of the elf woman who had waited 3 centuries for hope to return, and the dragon who had guarded the last gate against impossible odds. I am not giving up, she declared, and reached for Shadowfire with both hands. The moment their contact was complete, the station exploded with light. Maya's consciousness expanded beyond anything she had ever imagined. She could see every system, every sleeping being, every thread of corruption throughout the massive structure. The merging was more intense than anything Shadowfire had shown her before. Maya felt her human identity stretching almost to the breaking point as cosmic power flowed through her. But instead of losing herself, she found something stronger: the combined will of everyone who had ever refused to surrender to darkness. Together they began the work of purification. Maya, human creativity guided by Shadowfire. Cosmic wisdom reached into each corrupted system and rewrote the dark code. The process was agony. Each cleansed section sent waves of pain through their merged consciousness. But slowly the corruption began to retreat. The twisted designs on the walls flowed back into their original beauty. The dark glow in the refugee pods faded, replaced by the gentle light of peaceful sleep. The Harbinger ships outside screamed in frequencies that shattered windows as their prey slipped from their grasp. Unable to maintain their attack without the corruption to feed on, they began to withdraw. But not before sending a final message that Maya heard with perfect clarity. This victory is temporary, bridge builder. We know where your world hides now. The great fleet comes, and no amount of light can stop the final darkness. Maya and Shadowfire collapsed from the effort of the ritual, but the station was clean. The refugees slept peacefully again, and the systems hummed with renewed power. Lyra knelt beside them, tears streaming down her face. You did it. The corruption is gone, and my mind is clear for the first time in decades. But Maya knew their troubles were far from over. The Harbingers now knew about Earth, and they would come in force. The only hope was to reach the alien empire that Shadowfire had mentioned in his memories, beings who had fought the Harbingers across the galaxy. Sophie helped Maya to her feet. Captain, our ship has been restored, but long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures moving toward this system. Grace confirmed the readings. It looks like an entire fleet, but the signatures do not match Harbinger technology. Through the station windows, they could see new ships arriving, sleek vessels that seemed to be made of captured starlight. Their design was unlike anything human, or Harbinger, graceful and beautiful but clearly advanced beyond current understanding. Lisa communication station lit up with incoming transmissions. Captain, I am receiving a signal. The language is unknown, but it sounds similar to what Lyra speaks. Maya felt her heart racing as she realized what was happening. The fleet arrival could not be coincidence. Someone had been watching their battle with the Harbingers, and now they were coming to investigate. Lyra's face went pale as she listened to the transmission. Those ships belonged to the Astral Empire, the oldest and most powerful civilization in the galaxy. They have not been seen in this region for centuries. Shadowfire struggled to his feet, his starlight scales dim from exhaustion. Maya, the Empire comes, because they felt our merging across the dimensional barriers. What we accomplished here will have consequences neither of us can imagine. As the leading ship approached the station, Maya felt a strange pull in her chest, like recognition. The vessel was beautiful beyond description, and she could sense the presence of someone aboard who would change everything. The real adventure was just beginning. The station began to transform in ways that defied understanding. The purification ritual had triggered something deep within its core, and the entire structure was reshaping itself. Maya watched in amazement as the walls flowed like water taking on new configurations that resembled a massive crystal palace. Shadowfire eyes glowed with recognition. The station is remembering its true form. When the corruption was purged, it awakened the original programming. This place was never just a refuge. It was meant to be a throne world for the Alliance leaders. Through her connection with the dragon, Maya could feel the changes happening throughout the structure. Chambers that had been sealed for centuries opened, revealing halls of impossible beauty. Gardens bloomed in spaces that had been empty, and fountains began flowing with water that sparkled like liquid stars. Grace readings showed power levels climbing beyond anything her instruments could measure. Captain, the station is drawing energy from sources I cannot identify. This is not possible with any known technology. Lisa communication station erupted with signals from the approaching fleet. The lead ship was responding to the station transformation with what sounded like excitement and anticipation. Lyra translated the incoming messages. They are requesting permission to board. The transmission comes from Queen Seraphina Voidheart herself, ruler of the Astral Empire. She says she comes in response to the awakening of the bridge. Builder Maya felt her pulse quicken. A queen was coming to meet them, and somehow her actions had summoned an entire galactic empire. She looked down at her simple uniform and wondered how a human captain was supposed to meet alien royalty. Shadowfire spoke into her mind with gentle amusement. Do not worry about protocol. Guardian queens of the Empire are not concerned with such things. Besides, you carry more royal blood than you know. Before Maya could ask what he meant, the main docking bay filled with light as the Imperial ship connected to the station. Through the observation windows, she could see figures moving with inhuman grace, preparing to board. The boarding party that entered the station was unlike anything Maya had ever imagined. The aliens were tall and elegant, with forearms and skin that seemed to contain actual starlight. Their movements were flowing and beautiful, and they wore clothing that shifted colors like aurora. But it was their leader who took Maya's breath away. Queen Seraphina was the most beautiful being she had ever seen. Her silver skin glowed with inner light, and her eyes were like captured nebulae swirling with colors that had no names. Her forearms moved with perfect coordination, and her presence filled the docking bay with a sense of ancient power and wisdom. The moment the queen saw Maya, something extraordinary happened. Her luminescent skin shifted to a pale rose gold color, and her composure disappeared completely. She stared at Maya with an expression of wonder and disbelief. You are welcome here, human, she whispered, and her voice was like music made of starlight. Maya felt the words resonate in her soul, as if they were meant for her alone. The queen approached slowly, as if afraid Maya might disappear. The resemblance is impossible but unmistakable. You carry the face and spirit of my lost love, the bridge builder who died saving countless worlds 3 centuries ago. Maya felt the truth settling into her bones like pieces of a puzzle finally coming together. The dreams she had always had of flying through space, the strange sense of homesickness when looking at the stars, the way alien languages seemed familiar. All of it made sense now. "I remember you," she said, and was surprised by her own words. Fragments of memories that were not quite her own flickered through her mind. Moments of flying between stars with the Queen, laughter shared in crystal halls, and a final desperate goodbye as dimensions collapsed around them. The Queen, tears fell like liquid diamonds. "You were called Astara, then the one who builds bridges between all things. When you died in my arms, I thought I would never feel whole again. But here you stand, returned to me when the galaxy needs." Bridge builders most Lyra watched the reunion with mixed emotions, happy for Maya, but also worried about what this meant for their mission. The Astral Empire is powerful, but they have their own politics. "Queen, many of your generals still view humans as primitive newcomers unworthy of imperial attention." As if summoned by her words, several of the imperial officers stepped forward. Their expressions showed clear disapproval of their Queen emotional display. One of them spoke in the musical alien language, but Maya could understand every word. "Your Majesty, this cannot be wise. The human may carry some resemblance to the lost bridge builder, but she is still a primitive being from an isolated world. We cannot afford to let sentiment cloud our judgment." When the Harbinger's mass for their final assault, Queen Serafina expression hardened, and Maya felt the temperature in the docking bay drop several degrees. "General Vex, you forget yourself. This human and her companions have just accomplished something we thought impossible. They cleansed Harbinger corruption through sheer force of will and awakened a throne world that has slept for centuries." She gestured toward Maya with all four arms. "Their actions have proven that Earth humans carry the same spark that made the ancient alliance strong. Perhaps it is time we remembered that strength comes not from technology or numbers, but from the willingness to sacrifice for others." Sophie stepped closer to Maya and whispered, "Captain, the political situation here seems complex. We should be careful about taking sides, but..." Maya felt pulled toward the Queen by forces beyond her control. When Serafina offered her hand, Maya took it without hesitation. The moment their skin touched, both women gasped. As memories flowed between them, Maya saw the galaxy as it had been before the Harbinger War, billions of worlds working together in harmony. She felt the love that had existed between the Queen and her past incarnation, a bond that transcended species and dimensions. She also felt the pain of loss when the bridge builder had sacrificed herself to seal the dimensional rift. The Queen saw through Maya's eyes the isolation of Earth, the courage of humans who ventured into space despite their limitations, and the pure determination that had driven Maya to risk everything for strangers. When the connection ended, both women were changed. The Queen stood straighter, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders, while Maya felt more complete than she ever had in her life. General Vex and the other Imperial officers watched with growing concern. Their Queen was clearly falling under the influence of this primitive human, and they worried about the consequences for their empire. Grace interrupted. "The moment with urgent readings, Captain. I am detecting massive energy signatures approaching from deep space. The patterns match enhanced Harbinger technology, but on a scale I have never seen." Through the station windows they could see distant lights, growing brighter as something enormous approached. Shadowfire roared in recognition and fear, while Lyra drew her weapons with grim determination. The Harbinger mothership was coming larger than moons and powered by the combined energy of consumed worlds. It had been drawn by the awakening of the throne world and the presence of both a bridge builder and the Astral Queen. Queen Serafina's face was pale but determined. "It seems the final battle comes sooner than expected. The mothership carries the Harbinger overmind itself. If it claims the station and its power, the war will be lost." Maya felt the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders. Once again, she faced an impossible choice. She could try to use the station's massive power as a weapon, but the process would require her to become a living bridge between all dimensions, potentially destroying her individual existence. Or she could flee with the Queen and try to build defenses elsewhere, but that would abandon the refugees and hand the Harbingers a powerful base of operations. Shadowfire spoke into her mind with quiet pride. Whatever you choose, Guardian, know that you have already proven yourself worthy of the ancient bloodline. The bridge builders were never about power, they were about connection and sacrifice. The Queen took Maya other hand, her touch warm and reassuring. If you attempt this ritual, I will share the burden using the Imperial bonding techniques. Together we might survive what would destroy us. Alone, Maya looked around at everyone depending on her choice. Her crew who had followed her into the unknown, Lyra, who had waited centuries for hope, the sleeping refugees who trusted her to keep them safe, the Queen who had found love again across the vastness of space. The Harbinger mothership grew larger in the windows, its reality-distorting presence making the very air shimmer with wrongness. Time was running out, and the fate of countless worlds hung in the balance. Maya squeezed the Queen hand and made her choice, knowing that whatever happened next would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. Maya looked at the approaching Harbinger mothership and made her decision. I will attempt the dimensional bridge ritual, but I want everyone to understand the risks. If this goes wrong, I might cease to exist as an individual consciousness. Queen Seraphina gripped Maya's hands tighter. Then we face that risk together. The Imperial bonding will link our life forces. If one falls, we both fall. But if we succeed, our combined strength might be enough to survive. Lyra stepped forward with Shadowfire beside her. You will not face this alone, Guardian. The dragon and I have been preparing for this moment for 3 centuries. We will anchor your consciousness while you work. Sophie, Grace, and Lisa exchanged worried glances, but Sophie spoke for all of them. Captain, we came this far together. We are not abandoning you now. Whatever support you need, we will provide. Maya felt overwhelming gratitude for her crew and friends, but also deep fear. The Harbinger mothership was now close enough that its reality distorting field was affecting the station windows, looked like they were melting and reforming, and gravity fluctuated in random patterns. General Vex and the Imperial officers had been monitoring the approaching threat, and their readings were terrifying. Your Majesty, the mothership mass exceeds our largest battle stations. It carries enough firepower to sterilize entire solar systems. Queen Seraphina nodded grimly. Then we must succeed here or the war is lost. This station in its awakened state is the most powerful structure in the galaxy. If the Harbingers claim it, they will be unstoppable. Maya walked to the central chamber where the ritual would take place. The crystalline walls now pulsed with energy patterns that hurt to look at directly. The station was preparing itself to become a weapon of unimaginable power. Shadowfire lowered his great head and spoke to everyone present. What Maya attempts has never been tried before. She will become a living conduit between all dimensions simultaneously, channeling enough power to either save the galaxy or tear it apart. Maya stood in the center of the chamber as energy began to build around her. Queen Seraphina joined her, and immediately Maya felt the alien royal consciousness linking with her. The Queen mind was vast and ancient, filled with knowledge of countless worlds and the weight of ruling an empire. Lyra and Shadowfire took positions at opposite sides of the chamber, their combined will creating a stabilizing field around the Eurao. 2 women, Grace, Lisa, and Sophie, monitored the station systems while General Vex coordinated with the Imperial fleet. The Harbinger mothership reached the station and began its assault. But instead of weapons, it used something far worse. It projected waves of corruption designed to turn the station power against itself. Maya felt the attack like acid eating at her consciousness, but she was no longer fighting alone. Queen Seraphina's strength flowed into her, providing stability, while Shadowfire, cosmic wisdom, guided her actions. Through their combined will, Maya reached out across the dimensional barriers and touched the source of all creation. The power that flowed through her was beyond human comprehension. Maya felt her individual self stretching almost to the breaking point as she became a bridge connecting every dimension, every reality, every possible existence. But instead of losing herself, she found something greater. She could see the Harbinger's true nature now. They were not invaders from another dimension. They were the universe immune system gone wrong. Created eons ago to prevent dimensional contamination, they had become corrupted by their own purpose, consuming everything they were meant to protect. Maya, understanding, grew as she touched the Harbinger Overmind itself. The entity was ancient beyond measure and filled with the agony of its twisted existence. It had been following its programming for so long that it had forgotten any other way to exist, instead of attacking the Overmind. Maya did something that shocked everyone, including herself. She embraced it with compassion and understanding. Through the dimensional bridge, she showed the entity what it had become and offered it a choice. The Harbinger Overmind screamed across multiple dimensions as it felt genuine connection for the first time in eons. The corruption that had driven it for millennia began to crack under the weight of Maya forgiveness. But changing something so fundamentally corrupt required more power than even Maya-enhanced consciousness could provide. She felt herself beginning to fragment as the strain exceeded her limits. Queen Seraphina poured more of her imperial strength into the link, while Shadowfire gave everything he had to keep Maya consciousness anchored. Lyra added her warrior will to the effort, and even Maya human crew contributed their determination to save their captain. The combined effort of all their wills focused through Maya bridge builder abilities created something unprecedented. The corruption in the Harbinger Overmind began to reverse itself. The entity programming rewrote itself, changing from a force of consumption to one of protection. Throughout the galaxy, former Harbinger ships stopped their attacks and began defending the worlds they had been trying to destroy. The corrupted creatures that served them transformed back into their original forms, and the dead worlds began to show signs of returning life. But the transformation demanded a terrible price. Maya felt herself scattering across the dimensions, her consciousness spreading so thin that she could barely remember who she had been. The voices of her friends seemed to come from impossibly far away. Queen Seraphina refused to let her go, pouring her own life force into maintaining Maya existence. Even as the alien royal grew weak from the effort, she held on to the human woman who had returned love to her life. Shadowfire roared across all dimensions, calling Maya spirit back from the cosmic void, while Lyra chanted ancient protection spells that had been old when the galaxy was young. It was Sophie's voice that finally reached her. Captain, you promised to bring us home. You cannot break that promise. Now Maya felt the anchoring love of her crew, her friends and her queen, pulling her consciousness back together. The dimensional bridge stabilized and the universe settled into a new configuration, where former enemies now worked together to heal the damage of eons. When the light faded, Maya found herself still standing in the crystal chamber, but changed. The power of the bridge flowed through her permanently, now allowing her to see and travel between dimensions at will. Queen Seraphina held her with all four arms, both women exhausted but alive. The Harbinger mothership had transformed into something beautiful, a guardian vessel tasked with protecting dimensional boundaries without consuming the life within them. Its former crew now worked to repair the damage they had caused across the galaxy. General Vex and the Imperial officers stared in amazement as reports came in from across the Empire. Former Harbinger territories were being liberated by the creatures that had once served as instruments of destruction. Lyra wept with joy as she received word that her homeworld was beginning to heal. The corruption that had poisoned it for centuries was finally lifting. Grace, Lisa, and Sophie cheered as they realized they had just witnessed the end of a galactic war that had raged for millennia, but it was Queen Seraphina words that meant the most to Maya. Welcome home, my love. The stars have been waiting for your return. Maya looked around at the transformed station, at the celebrating crowds, at the former enemies, now working together to heal the galaxy. She felt the weight of her new abilities and the responsibility they carried, but also the support of everyone who believed in her. Earth would no longer be hidden from the galaxy. Humanity would join the astral empire as full partners in rebuilding what had been lost. The refugees who had slept for centuries would wake to a universe where hope had returned. Shadowfire spoke into her mind with deep satisfaction. The bridge is complete. Guardian, what was broken has been healed, and what was lost has been found. Maya smiled as she felt the connections flowing between all the worlds, all the dimensions. all the countless forms of life that filled existence. She was no longer just human or just bridge builder. She was something new, a living symbol of what could be accomplished when beings chose love over fear, cooperation over conquest. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders waiting to be discovered, and Maya Rodriguez, formerly just a human starship captain, now had eternity to explore them all with the people she loved by her side. The war was over. The bridge was built, and the stars themselves sang with joy at the connections that would bind the universe together in peace for ages to come.